Hello, both sides of the conversation family. We welcome you to this virtual space crafted especially for you. My name is Jada Curry, and I'm both sides of the conversation's marketing director and graphics design specialist. I want to take some time to ground us all as a community into this space we are about to open up in, so let's go through our community standards. Both sides of the conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation, so we ask that you all be respectful of that. We also ask that you be respectful of each panelist, host, and participant. We do encourage healthy debates and conversations. Don't personalize anything with anyone. This includes name-calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming. This will not be allowed or tolerated. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. You do not have to agree, but show respect. These community standards apply to all of our live shows and any virtual spaces that we hold on social media, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We want to make sure that we are caring for each other as a community. This is our priority in all of our endeavors as both sides of the conversation. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to stay in touch with us via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. All right, thank you for listening and see you soon.
Hello and welcome everyone to Both Sides of the Conversation Live. We meet here virtually every Sunday at 2 p.m. I am your co-host, Brittany Doyle, and I would like to introduce you to the executive director and our other co-host, John Henry.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in for today's Sunday conversation. We have a phenomenal conversation that we're going to be talking about. We're talking about housing issues that are impacting our residents here in San Francisco, as well as throughout the Bay Area. We know there's been a number of issues regarding some of the management companies that are managing some of the housing facilities. And today is a very important call of action from community. So we're going to be having a phenomenal conversation about that today. With that being said, I want to go ahead and open up with today with some of the community announcements, some of the things that's going on here at both sides of the conversation before we jump into today's conversation. First of all, I want to thank all of our families, friends, community leaders, organizations who have been reaching out, just pouring in love. Yesterday, we put my mom to rest. We finished her services yesterday. And I just want to thank all of the community for reaching out, sending love, support, all the flowers, the gifts, the candies, all the love that the community has been showing me and my family. I just want to thank you all. It has really been a blessing to help get through this process. I'm still in the grieving mode, but I am still pushing forward. I was able to get out in community yesterday. So I just want to thank all of the community events that we was able to be a part of yesterday. I want to give a huge shout out to SFPD, Black Men Enhance, Us for Us, Feline Dance Group, a number of community organizations that came together to clean our communities. Want to give a huge shout out to Maurice Rivers and to EJ Jones in District 11 as we went out into the community to help clean our city, to make San Francisco the beautiful city that it is. We have to be the change. We have to be a part of making this place a great place. So I was just honored to be out in the community yesterday to give back, help clean up our city and make our city beautiful, and make sure that this place that we call home stays looking good. So just want to thank all those organizations. Want to thank, Cynthia, Mazzetta, and Ms. Patterson for putting together the Women's Empowerment Group at Speak Easy yesterday, teaching our community financial literacy, being out in community. So want to thank them for their event. Want to give a huge shout out to Erica Scott and to the African American Culture District for yesterday putting on a phenomenal block party at Cafe Emmy yesterday. It was nice to be in community with all of our community folks. And let me tell you, I have to take something back. See, one thing about me, I always keep it real. I was yelling and complaining about the block parties and, the significance of them and how do we impact community. But yesterday, being at the block party and really being in the community with the people and being a part of it. I have to take back. I think what happened yesterday, what took place with the Black Party, is something that our community needs. It was definitely a healing space. I mean, I've seen brothers from all parts of the city. Some of these districts where people don't even get along was there, embracing each other, showing love. And we had a good time, and there was a lot of conversation. I want to give a huge shout out to my brother Toriano from Desperados, and some of the community leaders who spoke to me. We had some great conversations, and my brother Toriano was giving some straight gems to me yesterday, man. So I just want to thank that brother for all the stuff that he does, and just continuing to be a pillar of our community. So I want to thank him. Brother Shaman Walton was out there, DJ from YCD, Tim Waters, a host of community leaders and organizations were out there. Great event, a lot of information, a lot of love, a lot of community bonding. And, I have to take my stance. If we need that to get people together, I think we could do that, as well as bringing the resources. So I just want to say again, thank you to the African American Culture District, to Miss Erica Scott for putting that event together. It was a great event. We had a great time out there at Cafe Envy yesterday. A lot of people came out to support. I love the event, and looking to see how we could, just make it better, to make sure that it's informative, and just continue to push the community information out. So that was definitely a real good event. With that being said, I want to thank all of our community sponsors who was able to get out to some of the events yesterday. Silent Tune, Wise Health, YCD, Collective Impact, the Human Rights Commission, Dreamkeeper Initiative, a number of organizations behind us, Family Equity Partners, Feline Dance Group, a number of organizations that's coming together to help support what we're doing here to push this platform together. So it was great to be out there in space with community, great events. And we're just looking forward to continue doing the work in the community with our community partners. And again, thank all of the community for what you're doing. We have to be the change. And yesterday was a great example of community coming together and having those important dialogues and enjoying each other. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into a couple of road announcements and some of the announcements for both sides of the conversation. And then we'll get started. We'll pass it back to Brittany so we can get started with today's conversations. Just so everybody knows, the situation is becoming dire in the U.S. At the U.S. Air Base in Germany, they are housing approximately 2,000 pregnant Afghan refugees. Their task of accommodating 10,000 refugees, including 2,000 pregnant women, is putting the facilities at the Germany Air Base on tremendous strain. There's temperatures and freezing, a lot of things happening, and they are working hard to accommodate those folks. Again, I'm going to say it again, it's nice to see them doing that for the Afghan people, but we're not getting that same service and accountability and love and humility for our Haitian brothers and sisters and our Haiti folks as refugees. So I would like to see that transform, over to our Haiti folks as well. The other thing that we wanted to talk into, the California Highway Patrol has been working with nearly 2,000 residents who had to evacuate under the fire warning that went out yesterday. So they are moving tenants and homeowner people due to that blaze that's happening right now. There's a lot of fires burning. There's about 3,600 fires right now in California, burning homes and property all throughout the state. And a lot of the state officials and organizations are trying to help move some of these displaced property owners. Very frustrating, but again, this is happening. So we want to make sure that we continue to support those people that are being impacted by the California fires. The California enacts 2 laws to slice through the local zoning rules. Governor Newsom on Thursday approved 2 measures to slice through local zoning ordinance. Most populous state struggles with the soaring house prices, affordable housing storage, and then the stubbornness of homeless. This proposal that the governor signed is going to affect about 250 cities and some of the planning and control zoning to see if we can combat some of the homelessness, and also to make sure that there's an opportunity to fix some of the housing shortages that we have here in California. As we all know, there's a housing crisis that is impacting our state. So it is very important for these type of legislative measures to be put in place and that type of funding to come help. There is a number of collaboratory pieces that's going to be happening with housing and with some of the organizations to get this money to get some of this housing out to community. I know in East Oakland, they are already breaking ground for 1,500 housing places for people in need. There's some going on in San Francisco as well. So we're just going to continue to support those efforts as we try to get housing. As we know, housing is one of the number one issues, and some of the people that are managing our housing is an issue. And we'll see that as we talk about that today on today's show. Community announcements for everybody in San Francisco. The Be Magic Family Day for residents in Hunters Point is going to continue to happen at 2401 Keith Street every day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then they're going to extend the hours on Thursday, and that will be happening from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So please reach out to Be Magic for updated information. And then the Baby Hunters Point Parks is in collaboration with the RX for the Zero Waste Gardening Workshop located at Heron Head Park at the Eco Center, 32 Jennings Street. Please reach out to them as they're going to continue to clean the community and do programming for our young people. Something that we really want to make sure community is involved with. And then don't forget about the Phoenix Day Block Party, October 17th. Phenomenal event. Please go out to the sundaystreetssf.com/Black Party to get that information. Both sides of the conversation. We're most likely going to be out at that event. So we're looking forward to that as well. For the both sides of the conversation announcements, every Tuesday, you all know we will have our Hidden Gem segment where we will continue to highlight and uplift our Black and brown businesses, as well as those community leaders that are doing positive things to impact our community. So please tune in this Tuesday at 7 p.m. And then every Thursday, we will have our Educational Thursday segment where we continue to highlight and educate intentionally our community with information. This week, we'll have another financial literacy presentation by Miss Sadie and her team. They'll be coming on to talk about the mindset of money. I think that'll be a great conversation to have. And then next Sunday, conversation for October 3rd, we'll be partnering with San Francisco Adult Probation and some of the reentry and recovery organizations to come on and talk about drug abuse and some of the fentanyl that's impacting our community. As y'all know, in San Francisco and across this country, fentanyl has been taking away a lot of lives with this substance abuse. So we're going to have a powerful conversation next Sunday with them. So looking forward to it. And then on October 10th, we'll be having our breast cancer awareness conversation. We are still looking for a couple more panelists because this is an important conversation that Black women in our community needs to hear about testing and getting seen. Breast cancer is a serious, silent killer that takes away a lot of Black women in our community. So we're looking forward to that conversation as well. With that being said, that is all of our community announcements. Thank you guys again. I'm going to turn over to Brittany to go over the theme of today's show and introduce today's guest.
All right. I do want to say before I go into our topic today of housing management issues, I am so happy that John Huey was able to experience some Black joy this weekend and really understand the purpose of why communities should come together and gather. So I'm happy that you got to experience that firsthand. All right. So as you know, we're talking about housing management issues today. And San Francisco and the Bay Area has been plagued with housing issues and shortages over the past several decades. A little tongue-tied. This is housing discrimination, strict zoning regulations, and gentrification, which has made it extremely difficult to gain access to hospitable and livable housing for underrepresented and underserved residents of San Francisco and other cities throughout the Bay Area. And so when we look at the problem, we see that there are many Black and brown residents who have been denied access to affordable and living housing due to discrimination and zoning practices. Some of the housing units may fail to accommodate individuals who identify with disabilities. And we're talking about like wheelchair accessible ramps, working elevators, and access to handicap parking without having to go through a lottery. Housing management may fail to comply with administrative duties to give proper notices to residents when there are changes to terms, conditions, and privileges in their leases. Housing management staff may and will harass residents if they are behind on their rent or when residents file complaints when management refuses to comply with work orders for repairs or improvements. I've heard of when landlords may refuse or delay work orders, repair, and improvements to units that will make units unlivable. Residents and their children are forced to live in units that are infested with rodents and bugs. They lack proper heating and cooling devices, working appliances, leaking faucets, and mold infestation. Landlords and owners may falsify announcements or ads to turn away individuals based off discrimination practices. And the list can go on and on and on. We've been hearing all sorts of stories throughout the community about what's been going on in a lot of these housing sites being built throughout San Francisco. And as a tenant in these housing sites, it's very important that you know your rights. So you just have to know that there's information, and this can be found on our social media websites and even on our social media pages and even on our website, more detail about the resources that I'm about to talk about. But as a tenant, you should know that it's important that you have resources to support you if you get locked out, if you're involved with any sort of property removal, if your electricity, water, heat was shut off by your landlord, if you're being faced with eviction, if they're entering into your space without proper notice. Just know that you have free mediation services that are provided through the Housing Rights Commission of San Francisco. And to access those services, let's see. So to access those services, so if you believe that you've been subjected to housing discrimination, you can access these services through the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. You can first send an email stating that you want to schedule an appointment. You can include the specifics of the information and the details of what you're going through, and then make sure that you have your up-to-date contact information listed in that email so that they can easily contact you to make an appointment. There's also a number that you can call to schedule an intake appointment. And if you do receive an answer machine, please be sure to leave specific details and accurate information for them to call you back. You can also visit the Human Rights Commission, and they're located at 25 Van Ness Avenue. Once you get there, you'll be asked to complete an intake questionnaire. So if that's something that you may not be able to do, make sure that you have someone with you that can help you with completing these questionnaires. All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests for today. We have some wonderful people from the community that has been advocating and speaking out about the housing management issues that have been going on in San Francisco for several months now. There have been a lot of town halls that have been taking place, especially in the Bayview community. And so we're very lucky to have some people here today to give us further detail on what's going on in our communities. So I first would like to introduce Ms. Loretta Wilcher. Thank you for joining us today. Ms. Loretta, if you can just give us a brief background about yourself and let us know why you're here today. And make sure you're unmuted.
You have to unmute yourself.
All right, Miss Loretta, can you hear me?
Hi, difficulties here. I keep going in and out. I'm not sure if you can hear me well, but my transmission isn't through really well, so I don't know if you're going to be able to hear what I have to say.
We can. That's okay. Go ahead and introduce yourself. We can hear you. Ms. Loretta, we can hear you.
Okay. Wilshire, and I am okay. All right. Thank you. But I think it's a lapse, so I'll try to continue talking, but it's kind of difficult because I can't see you or your voice in and out. But anyway, my name is Loretta Wilshire. I am a native San Franciscan. I was born and raised Potrero Hill, Double Rock, Bayview, Hunters Point. And I've always lived in these areas, but until 26, I hadn't lived in public housing for a very long time since I was a child. In fact, since 1965. So I don't really know the property management situation was like because I was too young to have any understanding. But my first dealing with property management in Bayview Hunters Point began in 2016 when I grandfathered in on my dad's apartment in the Bayview properties. My dad got sick, so I came back to San Francisco from Vallejo. And my dad had lived here in this apartment for like 40 years. And he died in 2017. He lived to be 95 years old. And he was pretty much on his own.
Well, hold on, Miss Loretta.
Up until
Miss
that
Loretta,
point.
can you hear me?
And so
For you. Keep going. We're still doing the introductions. So I want to introduce you, and we still have one more person to introduce, and then we'll go into our experiences, okay? So if we just, hold on one second. I want to introduce Rebecca Browning.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for joining us today, Rebecca Browning. If you can let us know a little bit about you. Give us a brief background about yourself.
All right. I wrote it down, so hopefully I can hit all of the points. My name, like you said, is Rebecca Browning, and I have been working on housing rights and issues in San Francisco for about 4 years now. I first started working in housing rights issues in the Tenderloin community in downtown San Francisco, and I'm an AmeriCorps member, so I did AmeriCorps there for 2 years. And I was tasked with preventing evictions to combat displacement and gentrification in the community, as well as keep housing affordable in the community. So now I'm currently doing an AmeriCorps term with the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco, and we are tasked with working with the 4 related buildings located in the Bayview Hunters Point area, trying to get one big tenants association due to some of the issues that we will be discussing today in regards to, like, I guess you could just call it housing mismanagement issues. And that's me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and get into the discussion. And I just want to know, from your experiences, what major housing issues do you see right now that needs the most attention?
I guess I can jump in.
Okay.
I think, like I said, what I'm working with now is like related, and they fall under the category of corporate landlords. And from my experience of working both in the Tenderloin and now in the Bayview, and just knowing the majority of the people that I know are tenants in San Francisco or the Bay Area, corporate landlords, for lack of a better way of saying it, suck. I think there needs to be some kind of policy, regulation, legislation in regards to, I guess you could call it like oversight and accountability for these landlords, because some of the things that I've heard, like you were talking about, like rodent infestations to the point of where they're either making people sick or die. And, you know, we won't really get into, well, we'll get into the issue of mold, just mismanagement on top of the maintenance issues and like the public health issues. The way that management interacts with their tenants, you know, it's just disgusting. I think everyone has a right to have a house. Everyone has a right to have dignified housing. And then I'll step back and let someone else have the floor.
Yeah, I definitely know there's a lot of issues. You know, we have a couple of guests who's trying to log in today. As you all know, in San Francisco in District 10, we have had a continued digital divine issue with Wi-Fi service and connectivity issues. I know across this country they're advocating for infrastructure, and fiber optics is one of the number one things that we have to get in our community. The digital equity that we're faced with here in San Francisco is poor. So please, community, apologize for a lot of the breaking up of our panelists today. But living in San Francisco, living in District 10, living in some of our communities, this is what we're being impacted with. Our young people had to deal with it during the educational time during COVID. It's something that we really have to address and work on. So we're going to do our best today with today's conversation as we're trying to get some of the other guests to come in. But we're going to try to just get through this, and we'll try to interpret and transcribe as much as we can of what the guest is saying today. But this is some of the struggles that we're dealing with in our community when it comes to Wi-Fi and some of these housing facilities, putting up the right hot spots and things of that nature for our community residents. This is some of the stuff that they're dealing with, and we have to do better. And we're going to keep pushing, and hopefully with the support of City Hall and some of the initiatives that's coming out, we can help impact our community, get better services. But with that being said, Ms. Loretta, did you want to jump in there and talk about some of the issues that are impacting our residents, or some of the things that you are seeing in the housing development that's impacting residents related or any of the other management companies that are doing services for our community? Can you hear us, Loretta?
Yeah, I also apologize. I'm having Wi-Fi problems, yes, I can hear you, but I'm not sure you can hear me. We're having communication problems at this. So yeah, we definitely need to work on that up here in this area. Um, with related property management is responsiveness to the needs of the tenants. Living here in 2016, they've done like 15 or 20 inspections on my apartment, but nothing fixed. They will actually fix anything is that I have to write letters. I have to call in the city inspector if it's something. Just a couple of years ago, right before COVID started, I had uh, pest infestation of roaches. I have never ever roaches in my life. No matter where I've lived, whether it was when I was a child in the projects or wherever, I've never had roaches. And all of a sudden, I started getting roaches. And they kept sending an exterminator here. The exterminator indicated that the roaches were living in the refrigerator. They wouldn't replace the refrigerator. He said they were in the motor. This went on for like several months. And then COVID hit, and finally told them they wanted expected rent. If they didn't get rid of these roaches, the roaches would have to start paying rent because I refused to be confined to an apartment and have to deal with roaches. So finally, they got somebody out of here. I had to replace my own refrigerator and stove myself. So that that was like out of the question. Um, as I was saying earlier, my father lived here for 40 years before I moved in. When I moved, the first night I stayed in this apartment, I got sick because the carpet was so old and infested, whatever, I got sick. Immediately got a sore throat. Um, so it took like almost a year. Well, it took a couple of months to get them to remove this carpet and replace it with new carpet. I had to get a note from the doctor. I had to call the city inspectors in. And this is just examples of what I've had to deal with. But I think that it had been on this floor since my dad moved in, when he originally moved in. So I went through all kinds of changes to get the carpet replaced. And now I have a hardwood floor here, even after I got a doctor's note. So I could just go on and on. The plumbing, every 2 or 3 months, the kitchen sink would overflow. I'd come home from work, my kitchen would be flooded, the sink would be overflowing. Um, they they wasn't responsive to that. They kept sending inept people here to take care of it. Finally, just several months ago, they finally called in an experienced plumber who, and it turned out all the plumbing had to be replaced. Okay, so those are examples of what I've gone through. And, I'm a senior, but I'm pretty much a young senior. So, I will speak up for myself. But I know if I'm going through this, what older tenants are going through that don't have the the communication skill, or even they fear being kicked out of their apartment because they need things done. Even such little things as having a light bulb change. A 95-year-old can very well be standing up on a ladder trying to change a light bulb. But I had gone to a meeting, a property management meeting, and the staff seemed to think that was funny that a elderly person would call and ask for assistance with changing the light fixture. And these are the kind of things that I find really disturbing up here in this community. And management, the staff people that they have working for them are rude. They're low. And I know if I'm being treated like this, how elders that don't have the experience that I have. I've been a landlord, I've been a homeowner, and I know the responsibilities that come with that privilege. But it's like really, as my co-panelist said earlier, I did hear this. She said it sucks. It really sucks the way people that live in this housing is being treated, and something really needs to be done. You
Yeah,
know,
I actually
I
I want to add
myself
on to what
personally, I'm a head for some of the elder people before I had moved out of.
oh, I think she cut off. Yeah, Miss Loretta, I kind of
Go
wanted
on.
to add on to what you were. I wanted to add on to what you were saying because I actually have experience personally with related housing, and then I have experience working and providing services to seniors in low-income housing sites. Now, personally, I lived in a housing site. It was a mixed housing unit in the Mission Bay community. And at the beginning of my time there, it was managed by Related. And I will have to say that what I experienced was a cultural issue, like a trickle down effect from the overall culture of how Related runs their properties and sites. I'm not sure if they're typically used to operating in moderate or upper income housing sites, or if they're always with lower income housing sites. I don't really know too much about Related like that, but I know that as a Black woman living in that site, I experienced a lot of retaliation and fear tactics being used, trying to be forced up against me, where the management office would hold my rent for several months. And I'm starting to hear that that is actually a tactic that is used at several sites around the city, of holding your rent and then threatening to evict you, and you having to show proof that you paid rent and pulling up receipts. And, but during that process, you're scared because, they've hold your rent for so long, and you really don't know, how this company operates, or how they process their checks and things like that. They also have a tactic of threatening people with recertifications. So if you, in my experience, I had a recertification in May, but I filed a complaint because I didn't like the fact that somebody came into my apartment without my permission, didn't let me know, give me 24-hour notice. I filed a complaint at the national office, actually in New York. And they, within 6 months later, this was 6 months later, they hit me with a recertification, talking about they need to look at my finances, and they need to see that, when a recertification is something that is done every year. So I'm starting to hear that it's customary that it's these type of tactics that is being used, and that if it's being used at several sites, you start to think that it's it's the culture of the company, something that's being taught to their staff, something that their staff is seeing other people doing and thinking that it's okay to do it to other people. And then we're hearing that it's being done specifically to our Black and brown people. And then when we talk about dealing with seniors, you have a lot of seniors in these housing sites that are socially isolated. They are living in fear. They do not want to leave, for safety reasons, but they also don't want to leave because they think that management or maintenance is going to come into their house and steal. They're so scared of being stolen from that they do not leave their house because they've experienced it before. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And when we talk about like the lack of access to resources, a lot of people right now do not have that access when it comes to paying their rent, when it comes to, paying their electricity, having transportation to get to and from. Rebecca or Miss Loretta, can you speak on the lack of access to resources? What sort of resources do you think that people are needing right now to help, fight these management issues?
Okay, I can speak to that a little bit, and then I'll step aside and let Loretta say something. One thing that we're doing, like with the Housing Rights Committee, is there were tenants associations in each of the 4 buildings in the Bayview, and now we want to create like one big tenants association because, like some of the things you're talking about, the fear of retaliation, or harassment that the tenants have faced. And our belief is if we have like one big tenants association with all 500, I think, and 94 units, it'll be harder and it'll look worse for them to retaliate against all of these units or all of these tenants. There were some other things. Okay, one thing I think, if you're able to, if you have like a bank account, cashier's checks. And I don't know, I put it in the private chat, so I don't know if everybody can see it, but the tactic of withholding the rent, they act like it's more of like an accounting error from what I've heard. This is not just like a San Francisco or a Bay Area issue. This is something that they do all across the country. So I think you're right. That's part of their corporate culture. They're doing it in Chicago. They're doing it pretty much every other place that Related is in the country. So if you can get like a cashier's check, get a cashier's check because your bank will have a record of that. They're probably depending on people paying in like money orders or things that really can't be traced. So if you are paying in money orders, however you're paying, make sure you hold on to the receipts. Make sure if you can take a picture of it, photocopy it, do whatever you need to do to ensure that you have those records. Because I've heard of them coming back and saying, oh, you owe like 6 years worth of rent. And it's like, number one, how only can go back and collect for 6 months of rent. So that's one thing to know. And I don't know how to get this information to y'all, but there was because what Housing Rights Committee were a part of the National Alliance of HUD Tenants, and there is a legislation that they are trying to pass in regards to a lot of the things that we're talking about right now. One of the things that they're not able to do, which is kind of like one of the things that are affecting us today, is get free Wi-Fi for everyone living in the HUD buildings. HUD claims that they have no control over that. So, and I guess if things, pop up, I will let you know. Also, we did write a letter, which is kind of like a petition. So when I have space and time, I'll probably like read that letter, and we will be going out next week and either door knocking or putting it on people's doors or putting it in different community spaces. So the flyer that we have has a QR code that will take you to the letter, and then it'll also take you to kind of like the petition where you can sign. And it is asking for, let me go to the letter real quick. So these are our demands.
Can you put that information in a private chat so we could get it out to community of the?
What information?
You said you had information about the policy that's going in place.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm gonna read these demands real quick, and then I'll like copy and paste and put it in the chat, because it's a lot of good stuff. So full abatement of the rodent infestation at LaSalle and all other buildings with pest issues. This includes addressing any structural issues in the building and units and waste management issues that are contributing to the infestations. Tenants should not be asked or expected to have to handle any traps or waste from the abatement, and management must be 100% responsible for all of the abatement needs. Cost, logistics, implementation, management, and waste removal. Full and thorough abatement of all mold and mildew present across all buildings in the accordance with the SF Department of Building Inspection and SF Health Code Article 11's guidance on mold abatement. Immediate response to tenants who have made requests to be moved out of uninhabitable units and proactively find them new units that are habitable while the repairs, maintenance, health, and safety needs in their units are addressed. Immediate and thorough response to all open and unaddressed repair and maintenance requests. Immediate termination of all related employees responsible for the negligence at this property, including but not limited to Mr. Danny Rivera and Ms. Shamitra Rochelle. And so the flyer, which I should have been on my game, I apologize, and forwarded it to y'all so you could share it, but I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that I share the legislation. So give me one moment.
All right, Miss Loretta, you want to jump in there? Miss Loretta, did you want to say something?
I'm sorry, I barely heard anything that Miss Rebecca was.
We're talking about what resources do you see is needed right now in the housing sites? What resources do you see is needed right now in the housing sites? I'll speak on hoarding is a really big issue in housing sites right now. And there are no resources to help people. As you know, hoarding is a mental health issue. And instead of addressing and providing resources to address the mental health issue, a lot of seniors get faced with eviction because they're not, meeting the standards of the apartment. Like you can only have, so many things at the height of your window, so many things, not blocking doors. You have to have like a fire escape in your apartment, like these things that are looked at once a year when maintenance comes into the apartments. And so we have a lot of seniors that suffer from hoarding. And it's a really big issue right now, but there are not a lot of resources out there. And so it's always good that if you come across any resources around hoarding, to please let it be known, share it with other people. It's very much needed right now. Ms. Loretta, did you have anything to add around resources?
Well, I want to talk about hoarding because I think I be hoarding. I know that's mental health. I be hoarding. I be keeping everything, trying to keep everything. But how bad is that in our housing developments? Is it that bad, or is it just a small percentage of the issue?
No, it's bad. It's bad, especially among our seniors, because especially when you have seniors that have outlived their family and they're isolated, they're trying to hold on to all those memories. And we're talking about decades and decades and decades of stuff. And then, and even when it's so much of an issue, like when they were relocating the seniors from the old Double Rock into the newer housing sites like the George Davis Senior Center. So many seniors were hoarding from stuff from 1950 all the way to 2017 at the time. So we were talking about roach infestation, mice infestation, bed bug infestation. Like we was hosing down. I mean, it was bad as people was coming through. We had the dogs out, like everything. And these are like the impacts of hoarding. And it's like a attachment, emotional, issue. And it's not just our seniors, it's mainly among our seniors, but it's people that are 30, 40, 50-year-olds that have really bad hoarding issues.
Rebecca, Brittany, do you guys see a lot of the infestation increase due to the community development that's taking place with the shipyards? Is that causing some of this extra infestation? Or this just from people housing and storage?
One of the things I believe and I think that it comes from is like how I said in the list of demands is the waste removal. From what I understand is there's an issue with them. I don't necessarily know if it's related or people, or I'll just say related. They have something to do with the dumpsters not being moved in time in a timely manner. So it brings in the rodents, the pests, the different things. Also, there's other probably like structural issues that have went on. Also, the issue has been allowed to go on for so long that these rodents and pests and things are probably part of the structure. I hate to say it,
Or housing.
Yeah, I talked to a tenant last week who, like, one of the things that it was on her. The cost was on her it took her 2 years to get rid of the rodents, but she said she would, like, I guess, fix the hole in the wall, and then they would like chew back right through it. So that lets you know it's in the structure. So yeah, it took them a long time. I'm gonna go ahead and it's called the Tenant Empowerment Act. So I just copied and pasted it from the thing, but I didn't make it all pretty for y'all. So I apologize for that. But it's a lot of good stuff in there that hopefully this will be able to get passed. So
thank you for sharing that. Miss Loretta, are you with us? Miss Loretta. Okay.
I guess her mic's still up. So do you think that
I'm gonna try to jump back in now. Yeah, I'm in and out. So I'm gonna try to one of the resources that I'd like to suggest for anybody that needs assistance in dealing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
One of the resources that I would like to suggest for people is the Coalition of Legal Professionals, and they're located on Shafter Avenue.
Looks like we lost her again. But if we're talking about legal resources, I can put on the table Open Door Legal. They have an office in Bayview on 3rd Street. They help with a lot of housing issues, and they actually just opened up another office in the Western Addition. And so now in the office in Bayview, it provides free legal services to residents throughout District 10. And for the one in the Western Addition, it's for, I guess that's District 5, so people throughout District 5. And so they're easy to navigate. Their website is easy to navigate. You can just go on the website and request a meeting.
Brittany,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that this call to action for community? I heard Rebecca talking about how our seniors impacted, and that just infuriates me anytime our elders of the community have to deal with those type of things. Is the Human Rights Commission the point of contact that we need to go to deal with this? Or when we're talking about how we put people together to move with the legislative process, how do we get that moving so that we could go ahead and impact those community members who are impacted?
Well, actually, for the seniors, for each major community, there are senior centers set up in each major community with case managers, housing advocates. That really should just be your first line. It's easy for the senior to get to. They already are familiar with the information. So if you're in Bayview, you can go to the George Davis Senior Center. They have case managers there that are fully equipped to help you handle all of your housing issues. And they're all very well connected through Kathy Davis. So a lot of stuff can be very well taken care of. And she actually can take care of everybody in District 10. And then actually, now that I think about it, they also have a senior center in the Western Addition, Rosa Parks. They have a case manager there that'll be able to get people connected as well. So I would say that would be the first line. And if they do not have the resources that the senior needs, which is very, very rare, because they get funded to make it real easy for the seniors just have to know about it. That's it. Like, they have to get the flyer on their door. You know, there's always going to have a call to action about the importance of increasing access to resources to make sure that people know about what's going on in the community. And seniors are the hardest people to reach. You literally have to put a flyer on their door or knock on the door or call them on the phone to let them know about resources in their area. So if there are seniors that are facing housing sites, you know, the first thing to do is connect them with their local senior center.
You know, I got a question for Ms. Rebecca, if she can hear me. One of the things when you talked about waste management, are you saying that they need to have the dumpsters of the trash removed? Because I know they have those big dumpsters out in the community. Are you saying that it needs to be more frequently happening during the week so that the trash doesn't overflow and things of that nature?
I believe so. From what I can understand, and hopefully, I believe it could be like an issue of like security where people will come and park in front of the dumpster. So when Recology or whoever it is comes to try to move the dumpsters, they can't because it's blocked in. But also it does need to become on more of a frequent basis. I don't know if that issue has been resolved, but I know for a while during the summer, that was like a real big issue. Like almost every other day I was getting an email like the dumpsters are still here. They're like literally they'd be like overflowing, you know. When the dumpsters are overflowing, people will just put like trash on the outside around it. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's definitely something we need to tackle with Recology and the property management, because again, if tenants are paying those rents, you know, the use and the frequency of, you know, dumpster removal, that should be happening more frequently.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, Recology is pretty good at finding out how many tenants, how much per day, and if it needs to be increased, you know, to 2, 3, 4 times a week. I mean, that's something that needs to happen, because I noticed, you know, in Shortview, you know, some of the other housing spots, you know, especially over the weekends with people having parties and different things happening, the trash can get built up over the weekend. So maybe adding a service, you know, over the weekend will be something that'll be helpful.
Yeah. Or it could be illegal, because where I live, you know, we have like the dumpsters too. So it could be like illegal dumping. People come into the community, they know they got the dumpsters like on the weekend and they fill it up. You like where I live, you see like furniture and all kind of stuff.
Right. So, you know, we was out there at the town hall meeting a couple of weeks ago. There was a number of issues, you know, that came up with different things about the rent and eviction notices, with people paying with money orders and different things of that nature. And there, you know, there's an estimated about 78% of the housing residents, you know, falling behind on payments and things of that nature. Is that tied to what you and Brittany was talking about holding the rent? Because I need to understand that a little bit clearer, Brittany. When you say holding the rent, what does that look like? Is it physically that the management company is not cashing the payments?
I don't. Well, I guess she's shaking. Can I jump in real quick? Because someone just texted me and they said related don't get. Well, I'll say it professional. I'm sorry. Related does not care about the dumpsters. They're, you know, basically bottom line from what I can tell is they don't care. And the cool part about they keep texting me. Okay, so they said it does cause the infestation, and maintenance will attend to the infestation problems if you call for help. But back to, from what I understand, because this is, like I said, this problem is just not San Francisco or Bayview related. This is a nationwide issue with related. It seems like the tenants are paying the rent, so I don't necessarily know if they're withholding it, whether it's like, we'll just be nice and say like a clerical error and it's not getting entered into the system. So instead of them taking a look at like what they're doing, you know, what went wrong with their system, they're putting it back on the tenant. But also, regardless of whether the tenant's paying the rent or not, which everybody should pay your rent if you can. I understand COVID, you know, but what I would like to say is they only can go back 6 months. But what they'll do is they'll come back and say, you owe rent from, I don't know, let's say like 2018. But they only can go back 6 months. So, And I think this is what they play on. They play on the tenants not knowing the rights. They play on, that's the main one, the tenants not knowing the rights, the tenants not being organized. And I don't even necessarily know, for me being a tenant, it's more of, it's fear, but it's not necessarily, it is fear of retaliation. I've never been retaliated against. It's just the thought that somebody could retaliate against me. So I'm not going to go talk to my next door neighbor and say, hey, are you having this problem too? Because it's, it's the fear. But if we do come together, because like how Brittany was saying, we've had like 3 town halls now, 2 just solely talking about related issues. And I know Maika, she's going to continue coming into the community, continue talking about these things, continuing to try to bring related together so we can basically, bottom line is they just need to get out of San Francisco.
So there's a number of issues, and related is just one of the management organizations. But it seems not only here in San Francisco, but across these United States of America, large corporations and management companies that come over subsidized housing or community housing or government housing seem to have a problem with how they manage, how they orchestrate and do business within those residents. And I think the call to action is, how do we advocate and how do we come together to hold them accountable, from a legislative standpoint, but again, in our community. And, one of the things that I know people have been talking about is boycotting them and different things of that nature, because I understand that the financial part is a way to leverage the change, right? But are the people, the residents in position to have that saving to deal with the backlash of what takes place of boycotting? And that's where we have to get about. Sometimes we only hear about 3 or 4 or 5 of the issues, and maybe other people are having those issues, but we have to collectively as a community come together to really hold them accountable and let them know that our voices are to be heard. And one way to do it is boycotting. And maybe we have to do a rent out where, all the tenants collectively don't pay the rent, and, get them to understand that this is something serious, and
I had a thought a couple months ago. So it's not necessarily like a rent strike, but it would let them know that we got the power in terms of like our rent. We pay your salaries, which would be normally in most places, I don't know how it is in related, that the rent is due on the 5th. So instead of paying the rent on the 5th, pay the rent on the 6th. But in order to do these things like the rent strike, the rent out, the whatever it would be, because that's the only thing that's probably going to get them to wake up and notice, is we have to come together. And another thing, because I went to a Bay Area tenants assembly yesterday, and I did sit in on the workshop where they were talking about corporate landlords, is since we've been having like these town halls, and Micah is real good about bringing like different members and organizations of the community together, let's just make it official and form a coalition. Let's just, because we all have different strengths, we all have different knowledge, we all have different assets that we can bring to the table,
So with working with some of these tenants, because I've reached out to some of the elected officials, and from my understanding from them is the people that are having issues, they have reached out. But how do we get the community, all of the residents involved in the action to take place? Is the retaliation that bad where people are afraid? Or are we at a point where we need to get a legal team and maybe open doors, one of the access points, or maybe we have to just find an attorney to get this call to action to take action against related and other organizations or corporate landlords that are doing this to impact our community. I mean, we cannot have our seniors of the community, afraid to leave their houses or not be able to have the access to support that they need. I mean, we have to do something as community. I mean, we can't sit back and just say, hey, this is okay. So this is where I'm trying to figure out, because again, if we have seniors who are afraid to call for their light bulb or to get certain things to get changed. I mean, when you talk about carpets and mold and things in their homes, and this is going to impact their health, like we have to do something. We can't just sit back because these elders of our community, they don't have the bandwidth to have that level of action to be taken. So like, I want to be a part of it. I mean, I want to figure out how do we do this to make sure that their voices are being heard and to make sure that community understands what's going on so that we can advocate for them.
Well, we definitely need a legal team, because I know you've been to some of the town halls and you've heard me speak about Related before. So for the people out there that are listening that don't know, I don't know how much. I'm just going to call it and say they've made $1 billion on low income and subsidized housing tenants since the beginning of the pandemic. That's just since the beginning of the pandemic. On top of that, well, so they have the money. They have the money to do the repairs. They have the money to do these things. In reality, they're a luxury housing developer. They're a luxury apartment developer. What was I going to say? So I think definitely a legal team, because they have a legal team. And one of my coworkers, I don't know if you're familiar with Veritas Management, and
I've heard the name. I'm not 100%, but I've heard the name.
So I'm probably gonna bring not like today, but in terms of like Mike, I was thinking, because they ended up having to they made a tenants association, and they ended up actually suing Veritas. But one of the things that came up was, because I guess these large corporate management whatevers, they have insurance. So them suing and getting like a cash settlement or whatever is not really gonna make them change their policies or anything. It's just like a write-off to them. So there were some things that they did. So I would like, if we have this conversation again, maybe inviting some of them to the table. Because like with Veritas, I think
we did send an email out to Related, and we didn't get a response.
Of course.
We did.
Well, in terms of the letter, we got like, I think about 80 signatures, and we need, I think, 200 to send the letter. So basically what's going to happen is, if once we get the 200 signatures, and whether we hand deliver it or however we deliver it to Related, if they don't respond, we're just going to have to move on to like some type of direct action.
So that's going to be the one of the things, and I want to reach out to one of our community partners. He has a law firm, and I want to see, try to get some information from him to see what we could do. Because one of the pushbacks is I know one of the tactics that they will use is if there's a high number of unpaid rents. Even though it's not legally right to say that you can't provide services for undue paid rent, especially right now during this pandemic. But how do we leverage that to get our voice heard? Because I didn't know about the documentation process. Just learning more and more of the processes and what they're doing. I mean, that's very important. But I mean, our community shouldn't be waiting 6 months to get a rental statement. I mean, if you pay your rent, you should be looking for a statement.
I don't think they give rent statements. I don't think they give rent receipts, from what I've told.
Receipt? They're supposed to. They're supposed to have receipts.
Yeah.
A copy of the check, at least.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So that's the kind of stuff that, like, in the meantime, we can leverage our local officials, and legally, I mean, they have a right. If you make a payment, there's a request of a receipt there on that should be going out. So I'll look a little bit more into that. But they should be, anytime you're making a payment for anything, any business, they should be giving you some form of receipt, especially rent. They should be giving some kind of formal receipt.
But that's if they're at work. So that's another issue, because I know last year I didn't see, when I was staying in the Related property for the first 6 months of the pandemic, I never saw anyone in the office. So even though I still paid my rent during the moratorium, nobody was there to, give that copy. And that was just a unique situation. But prior to that, it was always copy, either a receipt or a copy with a stamp on it, a copy of your check with a stamp on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to reach out to them and continue to reach out to them, but we have to figure that out because that's not an excuse. I mean, even if no one's in office, they have to provide the community with some kind of digital forum, whether it's a PayPal or some kind of payment portal that people could pay to get some kind of virtual receipt, so that people can have access to that. So Definitely we got some more work that we need to do. And this is the part about having this conversation, organizing. And this is like the important key points that we want to hit on. And I know Maika's been trying to get in and her Wi-Fi, and I know Loretta keeps getting kicked off. But that's the kind of stuff that we want to hone in, right? Because one of the things is we have to be organized. We have to have our talking points. That's really the main things that's impacting us, or hurting us from getting that level of service we need. So these are like very important parts that we need to have down, so that when we having that ask, we know what needs to be done to help confront it. Because again, if people are not getting any kind of rent receipts, and most of these residents are playing with money orders, what kind of proof do you have that you're paying rent? Right now, it's their word against their word. They have the money, they have the lawyers, and they're just going to say, hey, they didn't pay their rent. Like, that's a big problem.
Well, from what I think this is Maika that keep texting me. It's Maika and Janice Smith, so shout out to them. They make a copy of the money order and give it on that's terrible. They give it on a blank piece of paper. And because they don't put it into the computer as a payment, I think that's how the clerical error happens. So like I said, this is not something that they just do in San Francisco. So I don't know if they do it in their property management training or what. This is something that happens in all the all the subsidized housing related buildings.
Yes,
you can imagine they don't do that though on their luxury property. I bet their payment system is working real well. Just for me, I'll just give a little bit of personal self-disclosure, because I have lived in buildings before where they didn't necessarily give a rent receipt. I have a payee. I mean, since I'm working on my bills are straight and everything like that, but I'm hesitant to let the payee go because I have like they're not going to come tell me that I didn't pay my rent. They can't. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's another issue that we're fighting for here at both sides of the conversation, trying to make sure that we educate our community about financial literacy, find out how do we get these checking accounts, get people back out of check systems.
Bank on San Francisco.
Said it again.
Bank on San Francisco. So if you have issues with banking, or like, let's say you have financial issues in the past where you feel like you can't get a bank account, if you can look at like Bank on San Francisco, and they work with some of the major banks in the area where you can get a bank account. I know back when I had back in the day, there were like some restrictions, but at least I had a bank account, or at least I could go in there, like deposit my checks. I could write checks. I could, so definitely look into it. Like Bank on San Francisco, if you want to get like a bank account. So like I said, you can either write a check and you can have the proof of that check through your bank, or you can get like a cashier's check.
Wow, definitely. There's comments coming in chat. Shout out to East Oakland Collective for all the phenomenal work they're doing. They're asking about, community. We need more legal rights and protection, including proper documentation. Definitely here at both sides of the conversation, we're going to continue to reach out to our different legal teams that deal with it. And this is a crisis that we're dealing with. So we got to reach out to some of these lawyers and law firms in the city across the Bay Area to get them involved and, give back to the community. This is very, very important information. And, because so many of our seniors are being impacted, I'm definitely going to reach out to our community partner, our lawyer, and talk to see if we could get some recommendations to help. Maybe we could get some of these tenant associations and different other city folks. So I'll reach out to our connections that we have at the city to find out, can we get some of those legal aid folks from the city to come on to talk about what avenues our community have. But Ms. Rebecca, do you know any of the legal right tenant resources that are available in San Francisco that people could connect through your housing, housing right group?
I want to say Housing Rights Committee has lawyers on staff. If they don't have lawyers on staff at this time, I know that we can definitely refer you to legal help, but I definitely think in regards to this fight and this issue, whether I know we're right now, we're focusing heavily on related because that's what I was hired to do, but there's other corporate landlords out there that suck as well. But I would definitely say in order to do this fight, whether it's going to be a rent strike as we move forward, we are going to need to have some type of legal team. So.
Well, I keep hearing you guys talk about all these services that suck. As community, what are we going to do to remove these people if their services suck and they're not?
You're going to stand up and hold them accountable. I'll be right back. I got to let my cat in.
But this is why I'm talking about community. This is an important conversation, right? Because these issues are real and they're impacting our seniors. They're impacting our community. They're impacting the mental health, the living experience that we're having. How do we as community come together? I mean, cannot be a 5 or 10 person conversation, right? I mean, if this is happening widespread, I know Related has a number of properties that they run here in San Francisco, as long as throughout the Bay Area. If we're having an experience here and they have an experience there, like, how do we come together? This is the question that we need to be asking ourselves as community. When we talk about being a change, being the new generation of moving forward, like, how do we get together to really deal with this? I mean, this is something that we got to really press. We can't sit back and just say, hey, we're going to wait. Like, if this impact is happening through all our communities, especially with our elders, we got to do something about this. I mean, we got to, as community organizations, I mean, if Open Door is not doing their part, like, we got to hold these organizations who are getting funding. These are people that are getting taxpayers' money, and I'm going to do my part. That's why I'm trying to hurry up and get situated with this accountability committee. We got to make sure that these organizations that are getting funded from taxpayers' money are doing what they're supposed to do, or we have to pull that funding from them. I mean, it's just, we at a tireless point here. We cannot keep giving money to nonprofits and to organizations who are supposed to represent the community, and they're not doing their part. Like, we got to hold them accountable, and we got to move them out of our communities immediately, because they are also being a part of the destruction and some of the trauma that our tenants and our elders are facing in the community. So we need to come together. I mean, this is a collective. This is not a baby issue. This is a community issue that is happening around not only San Francisco, but throughout the United States of America. And we need to have a real conversation about corporate property management and how do they impact the Black community inside our communities. And this is why I'm a big advocate about ownership. And this is why I don't agree with co-ops. And this is why I don't agree with some of these HUD models. Okay, we need ownership in our community. When you have ownership, you have a little bit more power and voice when things get done. But when you're not, these are the things that happen, and people just come in, they utilize our community, take the money, and don't provide what they're supposed to provide, because again, we're just a commodity at that point. So a lot of work to do, but this accountability thing is starting to be an issue, and we can't just sit here and talk about accountability. How do we move as community? Right? We have a town hall meeting and 20 people show up. That's not moving together in community, right? One person scream is just as big as the other person screaming. We got to have that same scream together. It goes the same thing with violence in our community. Too many times these families, they step back because they're not impacted, and they just sit back and say that's their issue until it happens to them. And then when their family is impacted by violence, they want to scream loud and want everybody to come to support them. We need to support each other in solidarity all the time, all year long, for all these issues. And housing is the number one issue here in the Bay Area as well as in our community. And we have to march together in solidarity. And I need community to come together, reach out to Rebecca and their movement, reach out to us, and let's figure out how we can mobilize, organize. And this is a Human Rights Commission issue, okay? If we have people who are living in inhumane tenants and apartments and complexes, and they're dealing with infestations, mold, inhabitable stuff, like, we cannot have this. So we got to work together. We have to figure it out. But it's going to take a team of people. It's going to take all of the communities, not just in San Francisco, but across the Bay Area, to come together, march in solidarity, so that we can hold our accountability at our elected officials. There's a lot of money going into housing. The governor is sending all of this money and to help housing people. But how do we utilize this money to impact the people that are in housing, dealing with some of the same issues that people that are unhoused are dealing with? I think that's the fight, and that's what we need to be moving forward to.
Okay, so can I say a couple things?
Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
All right. So I appreciate what you said. I'm just going to read these. I think it's Mike and Janice. So what they said was that's what Open Door Legal is doing. Basically, what they do is they get their information and they don't help, but they're using their information to keep getting funded. One of the people, I guess, that is the head of the tennis association is Joyce Armstrong. So definitely getting in contact with her and helping us move forward with this fight. Also, I know that there's some related buildings in the Fillmore, subsidized housing related buildings in the Fillmore that have been going through some issues. So they have, I guess it's like a petition, like for their issues over there, and they have, at last time I checked, about 100 signatures. So we've been trying to connect and talk to them. Like how you mentioned, we have town halls, or we've been having a town hall maybe like once or so a month. Definitely people need to come out. Our voices need to be heard. It can't just be one or two people, like how you're saying, speaking, one or two people banging the drum and saying, hey, people are dying. People are getting sick. People, kids are being raised in this issue. And these issues with the mold, the whatever, is probably making them sick. You wonder why they go to school and cut up. Or, you wonder why they have like educational delays, because they're living it. They probably are sick from the mold. I've heard of people that have had a mouse infestation so bad that they wouldn't even stay in their apartment. They were paying rent there, but they didn't stay there. They're living in their car. Thankfully that person has found another place and moved. But being that we're Black and brown people, and these are our elders of the community, I get angry. They shouldn't have to go through this. And then like how someone was saying in the chat earlier, the cold part about it is the people that are in the management positions in these buildings, in these Black and brown communities, they're primarily majority Black. So we're doing this to our own people. I think I done went off on a tangent, but also if we could get, bring Cheryl Davis into the conversation. I definitely think this, to me, I feel like this is an all hands on deck issue. My ask would be outside of the ask of the Housing Rights Committee, because there's multiple issues and there's some things that I'm not at liberty to say. But number one, we definitely need a strong legal team on hand, because the outline that they gave yesterday with like the Veritas Tennis Association and their movement, like we got to build a tennis association. I think it was, hold on, let me see my notes.
You tell Janice and Mike to give me Open Door. Who's the top contact over there? I'm gonna reach out to them and get them to come on our show. I've been hearing a lot of things about them, and I want to bring them on here and see what's going on over there. It seems like our immigrants and our Asian community gets all the legal support when it comes to housing and different issues. I want to know why my residents in Bayview and the Black community is not getting that same support. So Open Door Legal, if y'all listening out there, anybody got their phone number?
I want private legal.
I can answer those questions. I saw firsthand why we not getting housing, because a lot of times we don't have our paperwork together. We don't have our IDs. We don't have working phone numbers. We don't, once again, have lack of access to resources, but there's a lot of reasons. But once again, that's where community accountability goes into play. And John, just to go off of what you were saying, I hear you, uplifting the community and rah-rah and getting people to, fight, but there's also another side of it. There are people that generationally have been living like this for years and don't know anything else. So they're okay with this. The way they're living, this is okay. And they haven't seen better. So if you haven't seen better, you don't know, your standard is different than other people's standards. So you have to remember that too. And it's more of them than there is of you. Like there's more of people that are complacent, that are okay with how they're living, than there are that are people ready to fight and go against, the machine and go for something better. And you see that firsthand when you have these town hall meetings and it only be 5 people and it's 200 and it's a 200 unit housing site. So you have to remember that too, that there still needs to be education. Like as people are educating themselves, you got to go out and educate your neighbors too, and let them know that even though you're used to this is not right. What they're doing to you is not right, because a lot of people still don't know that.
We have to educate the community, but also we have to hold the city inspectors, Department of Public Health. This is something that they're supposed to do. If somebody's putting a complaint about something that's inhabitable and we're dealing with mice and things of that nature, like there's still a level of accountability that comes from the Department of Public Health and some of our folks. But I agree with you. We have to educate our community. We have to get our community involved. And again, you know, our people been beat on so much. We're so traumatized from everything. And you're right. Sometimes we don't say something and we just think this is how it is. But how do we educate them? How do we empower them to make them feel like their voice and their complaint is valued and they don't feel like they're going to be retaliated against?
I think one of the things that we're doing now is speak up. You know, let the people out there know that they're not alone. It is a lot of fear, and like how you're saying, people have been living like this, you know, for generations. You know, I spoke to a young lady. Well, I'm gonna call her a young lady who, on the 5th of July, a car ran into her house, and DBI came out and they told her later they had 90 days to fix it. I'm assuming it still ain't fixed. And I think I talked to her just last week. And on top of that, it just really broke my heart to speak to her, you know, because she said, you know, she's raised her kids there. She was married there. Her husband died. I don't think he died in the house, but, you know, so her whole life, her whole adult life was lived in this house. So I feel like, you know, when we talk about these things, when we talk about all these atrocities, you know, someone, you know, a rational thinking, I don't know if it's a rational thinking, they would say, well, just move. But if I've raised my kids here, why should we have to move out of the community that we've been raised in? This is a historical Black community. Well, I'm claiming it's a historical Black community. So why would I have to move? Why can't we, like how you said, hold the city leaders, the state leaders, the local leaders accountable and get this right? Because I think I can forward it to you just for like background information, because I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be continued. But like I said, we're part of the National Alliance of HUD Tenants, and they had invited like one of the top people to HUD to come like a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about recertification issues after the pandemic. And I don't think he was prepared. He wasn't prepared, you know, because he was kind of like giving like the polite, like political answers, like, oh, you know, but yeah, so it just kind of like.
But that's the big problem, and that's why I want to be on those calls. I don't like those people that come.
I'll send you the invites to the NAP meetings.
Yeah, please send it to me, because you know these people, they come here with all this data. They come in here and tell us perfect picture of how things is, but they don't never come with all of it. And then when you ask them the real questions, they never got a doggone answer. So we definitely going to keep fighting for that. And I will reach out to Director Davis and just see, you know, what part or what role do the Human Rights Commission play a part of this. But again, we need to get those Department of Public Health inspectors out there. I mean, when you're talking about living in these kind of conditions, this is a public health issue. Okay, they have certain legislative and legal obligations that they can push, whether it's red tagging or hold these legally from the city to hold them accountable to make them do some of these things. But again, if we don't have a community walking together as one, you know, it's hard to fight. You know, if you go in there and we say that this is an issue, and out of 300 tenants, only 80 tenants say they have an issue, I mean, it's hard to fight, right?
I think for me, like when I called it, because I have I'll do my customer service voice in case for the people that are in there, because we're going to start door knocking and phone banking again. And so when I call people, because I've done customer service for years, so you know, my voice naturally reverts back to that. So you may have heard this call. It's like, hi, my name is Rebecca Browning, and I'm calling from the Housing Rights Committee. And automatically when I say that, when they hear that, I think I haven't heard nothing. It's like a murder didn't happen. I haven't heard nothing. I haven't seen nothing. No, my neighbors don't have no problems, you know? So now I have to kind of like talk like this. And so, cause like with housing rights, we have this called like structure-based organizing. So there's like 6 steps to it, but it's like, I think when you're dealing with people and it's like years and years and years of this harassment and abuse and mistrust that's developed, I'm not going to say I don't think it works, but we have to find a way around it. So I have to, this is the me that you're going to get, you know, because I feel like people will relate more to that than me coming in, speaking in my professional voice.
So Rebecca, I need to hear this, and I need community to hear this. Is our elders in the community being verbally threatened by a related management company or any of their employees about being evicted or anything like that that's stopping them from coming forward to processing their claim? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. It not elders, everybody. Everybody. This is the tactic that they use. Like I said, the clerical are not entering the payments into the computer, probably withholding the money. Well, I won't say withholding, pocketing the money. That's what I meant to say. So there's no kind of like paper trail to it. And then if you do complain, yeah, that's what they're going. Well, you ain't paid your rent, and especially now. But yeah, so I think it's either Janice or Meg. I think they're sitting together. They said absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I've heard of it, and it's they said not just elders, everyone. It's everyone. Number one, I don't know. Well, no, I'm assuming the majority of the people on this call are from the Bayview. It's a beautiful area. You have the best weather, some of the best views, all of that. It's like the hidden jewel of the city. So. And they've been trying to gentrify that area for years. I can tell you, I used to work, because I used to do like case management for, it was like Bayview Community, something at the top of 3rd Street. And my supervisor back then, he told me, you know how you know when they're trying to gentrify the area? And I said, how? He said, when they put palm trees on 3rd Street. And my son was like, I think 6 months old then, he was 13, about to be 14 now. So that lets you know how long they've been plotting to gentrify that area. So
I remember when they did that.
Planned. So what they do is, one of the tactics that they use is, they don't want to redevelop or remodel or fix up with their money. They want to use like the state and federal funds that they get from the redevelopment or whatever they're planning to do. So that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on those funds to do the repairs. But it's like people, like I said, people are dying, people are getting sick, people are being neglected. And on top of all that stuff going on, you treat them like crap. I mean, if I were in that position, which I would not be, because, I have ethics and morals and standards, I would be like, I know this is a bad situation, but I would try to make the best of it and, have a little bit of compassion. But they don't have that, from what I'm hearing. They, because I'm a tenant, and, I've had managers that will, do all that and come and they, talk to you. That was me moving my neck, if you can see. They talk to you in a negative way, foul. They raise their voice, or like we say, put that bass in their voice, and then they wonder why, in an unprofessional manner, stuff pops off. Because as tenants, as Black people, as brown people, as elders, there's a lot of trauma. There's, we've suffered trauma. Whether it's historical, whether it's, we've suffered trauma. So you're coming and then you're raising your voice and you're yelling at me. And then you're surprised when, and I don't advocate violence for anyone, but you're surprised when you get punched in the face. It could, and I've heard this happening, it's a trauma-based response. So, I'm going to get off into my clinical side, and I'm going to cut it off there, but yeah.
That's terrible. We're going to continue to support the work that From the Heart is doing, bringing this out to community, but as community, we have to get out here and support, if these are, crisis times, this is a concern. This is something that we have to be a part of moving forward. I mean, this is not just a Bayview issue. This is a community issue. If this is happening here, we've heard other residents in the Fillmore voicing their same concerns and expressions about what's going on. There's a lot of work that we need to do. Community, we have to come together, especially to protect our elders and our most vulnerable seniors of the community. We have to do that. We have to stand up and make this happen. I will reach out to Dr. Davis and just see what part the Human Rights Commission could play a role in this. But
thank you.
Yeah, we have to do something. This is very, very terrible. And this is why we wanted to push this conversation up. As I went out to the town hall meeting to hear residents complain about a lot of these issues that's taking place. We have to come up with a solution again. And if that's a rent strike or whatever we're going to do to make relative know we're not playing. This is not a game, and they're going to hold our community hostage. Yes, this is a community that they have been trying to gentrify. They've been trying to push us out. But the residents are here. They do deserve a livable and habitable space while they are here. And they have a responsibility to make sure that they provide that living experience, not only for our elders, but for all in that community. And we're going to continue to fight side by side with them. But Open Door Legal, I'll be reaching out to them. I'll have our team start sending them some emails. I've been hearing some things about these legal platforms. I've been looking at some of the budgets that are going on and the amount of money that we are investing into our legal documentation folks. And some of our other communities, there's more money invested in those communities than in our Black communities. I want to know why. Because we know that the Black and Brown community deals with the most when it comes to retaliation, harassment, and discrimination, and why we're not investing more money into those services when it comes to a legal aid response. And if they're getting funding from taxpayers and they're not representing the community right, it might be time to get a new legal service here that represents us, culturally appropriate, and understand what's going on. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead. We're going to push this conversation again in the future because I think there's another conversation that need to happen. But I know Mike is putting together another town hall regarding the housing issues. Hopefully we can get some of those other complaints added to those issues. But before we end today, because we are getting close, but I don't want to take up too much time. I know Maika from the Heart, Janice, and Loretta, they've been having Wi-Fi issues getting connected to today's show. We had enough panelists, and I know we had a couple of other folks who weren't able to make it last minute. We're going to revisit this conversation. Collectively, we need to bring all of the thinking minds together and figure out a real call to action that really can impact this process and make this change happen. And again, I'm about holding those dollars, right? Because people could play all they want. When you start holding back money, people will come out and say something. So a rent strike. But before we do this, we have to prepare our community. We have to have the savings and the willpower. We can't just say we're not going to pay our rents and get evicted and have even more homelessness out here. But we need to leverage them in a way that they have to listen to our demands and our response and be accountable to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to put things back in place for our residents in those housing developments.
Okay, I would like to say if we well, you said we were going to revisit it, I can reach out to my coworkers and see if they can come out and do a presentation on what Related did. I'm not Related. I'm sorry, I misspoke. What Veritas did, because they actually had to do like the steps. I found my steps. They built a tenants association and they organized like the majority of the tenants, and which led to a rent strike. And then they had enough power in those tenants associations to they attempted to get some legislation passed, like SB 529 and so on and so forth. That was a state one, but now I believe they're going to kind of like take the language from that and do that here. And I think SB 529 was like the right to organize. So yeah, once we get that passed, yeah. So I definitely think, and I would like to see, because I know when Micah does the town hall, she invites like different organizations and different things like that. Like I said, since we all have like minds in regards to this issue, just build a coalition, meet monthly if we have to, behind the scenes, and start planning. And if we have to come up with some legislation, because I really think that the corporate landlords are the ones that are destroying San Francisco, whether it's Veritas, Related. I'm gonna throw John Stewart in there because I know a lot of times when people say John Stewart, you kind of like get that internal kind of like throw up in your mouth. And there's some other ones, either we get policies like oversight and accountability for them, or just don't even have them in the city. Bottom line.
Definitely. So we'll be reaching out to you. Let's organize. But again, I told Micah, let's organize. Let's get all the tenants involved. We want to make sure that everybody's voices is heard. We are leading in one voice, one call to action to make sure that what we're asking for, everybody's on the same page to make sure that we're impacting everybody. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brittany and Rebecca. If you got any last words you want to give out, please put those resources and information in the chats. We'll make sure that we get it on the screen. But Miss Brittany, every week so eloquently puts together our call to action community. So I want to hear from her today, give her last parting words, and what our call to action is for community and our community organizations moving forward to help impact the residents of our community that are being impacted by Relative and some of these other corporate management companies.
Okay. Well, pretty much everything that I have to say is a reiteration of what you and Rebecca have already been saying. But I do want to start off by just giving a shout out to Maika and Janice. I really was hoping they could be on the show today. I just want to shout out all of the work that they've been doing in the community the past few months. Maika and Janice have been very vocal on what's going on, and I just asked the community to support what they're doing because nobody is really out here doing it the way that Maika and Janice are doing, setting up town hall meetings in parks, in accessible places for people to come out in the middle of housing sites. All people have to do is just come downstairs and sit and listen. But when you are on social media and you see their flyers, share the flyers, encourage people to come, share their stories, speak out about what's going on, show up, attend their events. If they're doing something online, tune in, log into what they're doing, volunteer to help outreach and canvas our communities is really important. Like I've always say, increasing access to resources. There are a lot of resources and programs out here, but our people just don't know about it. And our seniors are the hardest community to engage. You have to go to their door or call them on the phone. And it takes a community to do that. It takes a lot of work. So, volunteer to support the outreach efforts of what they're doing. I also hear that there is definitely a need for cultural competency training when it comes to these housing sites. I've lived in a lot of places across the country, and I have to say that San Francisco is very, very unique when it comes to housing. The PTSD that we talked about, the trauma in our communities when it comes to displacement and the housing crisis and living in fear of not being able to pay this high-ass rent or knowing what's going to happen next with the ever-changing rent and housing situations that's going on, and then just throwing the pandemic into the middle of it, this causes a whole lot of chaos. And housing sites really need to understand, because just hearing all of these complaints and knowing that it's not just isolated in one location, it's happening across the city, it's happening across the country, it's cultural it's a cultural issue that's happening on a corporate level, and it's trickling down into our communities, and it's increasing our further trauma in our communities. So with that, as a community, we have to come together. We have to have accountability for what happens in our community. It's up to us to set the standard on how we want to be treated, how we want things to go for our communities, how we want to progress moving forward. So in order for us to come to these solutions, we got to come together. And how that looks like is, once again, attending these town halls, attending these community events, signing up, on these sign-in sheets to participate in events, to volunteer, once again, to outreach. It's going to take a community effort to really address, whether it's housing, whether it's, public health issues, whatever it is, it's still going to take a collective effort for the community to come together. That's always going to be my action every week. And then lastly, well, not really lastly, but the next thing is, the importance of educating yourself and knowing your rights. And once you know your rights, go to your neighbor and talk to your neighbor and make sure that they know their rights too. Just in case they're used to living the way that they live, they need to be educated and enlightened on what's better for them, because we're all moving forward. We all want what's better for ourselves, and we want what's better for our neighbors. So once again, educate our communities, educate the neighbors, let's come together and let's move things forward. And lastly, it's not really related to housing rights, but my call to action is for everybody that sees John Henry out in these streets. We know what it's like to grieve in the Black community. We have to protect our Black men. John needs to heal. He needs to grieve. He needs to be alone. He needs to take time out for himself. You can't just go to a memorial and then go out and serve and bump, and go hard in the community. We can't keep doing that. The grind culture is canceled. We're not doing that no more. We're healing. We're taking care of our Black men. We're taking care of our community. We're setting the standard. And that means that we heal, we get the mental health services that we need, and we grieve right. So when you see John Henry out here in these streets, Let him know, give him a hug, but also let him know that it's okay. We need to let our Black men know that it's okay to heal. Hear me when I say this, it is okay to heal. So let John Henry know, because he's not listening to me either. So that's my final call to action.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you to community. Y'all know that's my mental just grinding, but I do appreciate it. And I know this grieving process will continue to be a challenge for me. But again, community, you all keep me uplifted and going, and that's what we have to do. And I appreciate you, Brittany, our Both Sides of Conversation team, for continuing to support me through this time, making sure that things continue to move forward. So I want to thank all of our Both Sides of Conversation team. I'm looking forward to working continuously with Brittany and Wise Health, Rafiki House. We have a lot of amazing conversations regarding health, mental health, drug abuse, things that are going to be coming up to impact our community. This is what this is about. We're trying to change that narrative. We're trying to have these conversations to open up that dialogue for our community so that we can start healing and start impacting our community. We need everybody in the community to be a part of this change. It's not about Wise Health. It's not about Both Sides of Conversation. It's about community coming together, having that compassion, having that humility, making sure that we do what we need to do to help impact and make our community better. And it's going to take a lot of work. It's not an overnight thing. But again, together, as we work together, we can make that change. I want to give a huge shout out to the OMI family, to my brother Maurice Rivers, EJs, to our SF Black Wall Street folks. I mean, these people are doing a lot of amazing things to help impact our community. It starts with little people in the community making little steps to make the bigger steps. And I just want to appreciate Maurice Rivers, From the Heart, Maika, Janice, her team that's up there fighting for community, the elected officials that are behind us, taking these concerns and pushing forward. We have to get behind them as well. It's going to take a collective effort to make this happen. It's not just one group, but to all of our lawyers out there. This call to action for me is all of our lawyers out there who have the experience, have the background. Please have that humility and compassion. We have a housing crisis that's going on. We need that expertise. We need that education. Please come on to both sides of the conversation. Utilize our educational space to come educate our community, let our people understand, and then be the support and advocate for them so that we can make this change and hold these people that needs to be held accountable to make sure that our families, our community have that living experience that everybody else should have. And not have to deal with the unhumane part of the things that they're dealing with in these housing developments. We thank all you for tuning in today. This Tuesday, we'll have another segment of our Hidden Gems. And then this Thursday coming up, we'll have another Educational Thursday, phenomenal event, more financial information. We're going to continue to keep pumping this out to the community. And we're going to continue to have these community conversations here at Both Sides of the Conversation. We will be out in the community. You'll see us more and more at this event, making sure that we impact our community, getting those resources, and making sure that our community know. Please submit all your digital flyers for all your events over to us here at Both Sides of the Conversation so that we can make sure we get it out to the community. Also want to give a huge shout to the East Oakland Collective for the phenomenal work that they're doing, impacting those in need. Yesterday, they had a food drive that impacted our community, and that's what we have to continue to do, support each other. We have to work collectively and collaboratively and not compete. It's about impacting the people. That's what this work is about. We thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Brittany, for giving up your time. Thank you for Rebecca. Thank you for Loretta and the rest of the folks that were supposed to be here. We apologize for the Wi-Fi issues, but this is one of the struggles that we're dealing with in our country, and we just got to keep doing the work. But I'm not going to let y'all go without being petty tonight. Miss Mary Rivers and to Ryan Russell out there, to the Green Bay Packer fans, the Niners, we coming for y'all today. We shredding cheese. I'm not letting y'all get off easy today. I'm going to be petty. All my Packer fans out there, they know I'm coming for. I'll be in their inboxes. I'll be all over talking smack today because it's a big game. Sunday night football, San Francisco 49ers. We back home, and we're going to shred some cheese today. So, Mary, I'll be in your inbox today. Don't worry about it. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in. We're going to definitely have a good night tonight. Enjoy the game. And everybody out there, be safe. Continue to work together as so many issues continue to impact our community. Thank you, Brittany, for all you do with Wise Health. And we're just looking forward to continue doing work with you and impacting our community. We'll see you all this Tuesday. Have a blessed evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.